So that day I had given a brief glimpse of requirement analysis, right? So what is requirement analysis according to you? What is the task? I had said that day. So what do you think? What is requirement analysis? Me? Yes. Yes. Any idea? Anyone who can say what do you understand by requirement analysis and how is it done and why is it done? Anyone? Any idea or no idea?
No idea, sir.
Okay. So basically, whenever we are going to make any kind of a system or a software, it is very important for us to understand and document what is the exact requirement of the customer or the client. Okay. So this is being carried out by the development team. Okay. That means the system analyst will be there, will be speaking with the client or the customer and will get the requirements or what they need to do. Let's say, for example, if someone wants to make app, okay, so what will they do? They will speak to the baker who wants to have a bakery app system. What is the requirement? How would it function? Isn't it? What are the features the system will have? So all these things will be basically be these information by the system analyst, and they will perform a review. That means the analysis will be done. Or what are the things they should, the expectations of the client? What is it? Is it feasible or not to carry out? Isn't it? Technically, is it feasible or not? Do we have the right manpower or not? Whether we have the correct resources or not. So all these things we have to check. Okay. So the analyst starts the requirement gathering, or I can say the information gathering, and the analysis activity is carried out by collecting all the information from the customer, which is used to develop the requirements of the system. Now, after this part is done, he analyzes the correct collected information from who analyzes the system analyst, isn't it? From where they have gathered the information to obtain a very clear and very precise understanding of what the product is to be developed, because that is very important. Like that day also I said, you need to document whatever requirement is from the customer. That has to be documented very nicely so that no kind of misconceptions are there in the later part. Okay. So whatever the perception of the client or the customer is with respect to the software product, so that has to be noted and accordingly it has to be analyzed. Okay. So why do we go for requirement analysis and gathering? What is the main reason and what are the various activities that one needs to follow? So first of all, one has to identify what is the problem. Okay. That means what is the software all about, how it needs to be developed, why it is why is it important to solve the problem and how we are going to solve. So we have to identify the possible solutions to the problem, what kind of input data the system will be taking, and what is the expected output that is to be generated by the system. So these things considerations has to be made. Like for example, if you are making a library management system, so what are the various inputs basically you will be giving to the system? Hotel, isn't it? ISBN number. Okay, then the students name who have borrowed the books, staff members who have borrowed the books, what are the number of stock details that are available in there. So these are the input data that we will be taking. So the data can be text, it can be numeric, it can be image, okay, depending upon the input data that we will be supplying against each of the fields. Then what is the expected output in such kind of system? Basically, we will be generating maybe receipts, isn't it? We may be generating the record of what are the books available at present, isn't it? Those things will be there, so that can be printed out. So we need to be clear of what system we are developing. If they suppose we are developing a particular system, suppose if there are certain problems that we may face, so how we are going to solve those problems. So we need to have the solution set ready with us, so that if suppose we solve any kind of issue like face any kind of problem, then we should be able to handle and mitigate that problem very effectively. Then what are the various complexities that may arise while solving the problem? What may be the unforeseen circumstances? So those complexities we need to be very much clear whether we have all the resources or not with us, isn't it? Whether we are having the configuration technically or not, whether we are having the right manpower or not for developing the team. Is our team competent technically or not? So all these things we have to take into account. Then whether we need any kind of external software or hardware, are they premium or are they open source, isn't it? All those things also we have to see. If suppose we are developing a system very remotely in a cloud, so whether it's feasible or not, whether the system that we are developing, whether it will be compatible or not with those kind of platform. So we need to be very clear while the information is gathered from the client. It should be very clear. We have to document it very well and we have to write it down. So some of you may be aspiring, let's say, to be a software developer, somewhere maybe a system analyst, someone maybe you are planning to have your own IT startup. So these things is very very important. This is very from a very practical point of view. Okay, so when you are developing a system for someone else, you need to understand the client's perception of the problem, what the client is basically expecting from the system to be developed. So accordingly, you need to check the problem that is being uh, uh, the problem to be developed. If suppose there are certain kind of problems that may arise, you have to be ready with the solutions also to defend and to mitigate the problem. Okay, what kind of data the system should be inputted and what is the expected result that the system should be giving us. So all these things we have to be very very much clear in the first phase, in the requirement gathering and requirement analysis and specification. Okay, so once all these the analyst has understood the exact customer's requirements, the analyst should be able to identify and resolve the various requirements problems. Okay, so the most important requirement problem is that the analyst has to identify and eliminate any problems or anomalies or inconsistencies or incompleteness which there may be. Okay. So it is the duty of the system analyst to detect any inconsistencies, anomalies or incompleteness in the information gathered from the customer or from the client. So this can be done only by further discussions with the end users and the customer. So when he gathers all the information, all these information has to be documented, isn't it? So how it is to be documented? In an SRS document. What is SRS? Software requirement specification. Okay, so this in your project also you will be dealing with. Okay, so the part of the SRS are divided into three sections: functional requirement of the system, non-functional requirement of the system, and the goals of implementation. Okay, SRS, basically what we have, if you see here, we have, let's say, a view of a system performing a set of functions. So there may be various functions in a particular system. So depending upon that, the system, we have to be clear like what kind of input data the system will be taking in. Okay, so depending upon the input that the system has consumed, then it will be giving out the corresponding set of output data. Okay, so the functional requirement basically discusses the functions or the functionalities requirement from the system. So there can be various functions in a particular system. Let's say, for example, in an e-commerce website, what can be the various functions? Uh, we are what can be the various functions of an in an e-commerce system? Yes, anyone who can tell me? Yes, anyone who's there? I think all are listening. So I'm asking you, what can be the various functionalities of an e-commerce system?
So I was not present
Shahbaz?
yesterday. So your voice is not audible.
No, this is a about the various functionalities required from a system. Like for example, we may have a system which performs a variety of functions. So in a functional requirement, basically we will be uh, like be laying down the details of the function, which where the set of input data will be specified, and with respect to the input data, there will be a function which will be producing us the corresponding set of output data. Okay, so the user can get some meaningful piece of work done using a high level function. Okay, so okay, can anyone give me an example of functional requirement? Let's say for an e-commerce website. Okay, what can be the functional requirement? What can be the various functionalities of an e-commerce website? Can anyone tell me?
So money transaction, funds,
Okay, so you are saying that one is the bill payment, isn't it? Indirectly, you are trying to say, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay, good. So that is here. So it will take what kind of input data? The CVV details, card details, isn't it? All those information, right? Validity of the card, all that. And what else can be the other information that such kind of website or a system will be taking? Details of the customer, isn't it? It won't be. Will it be taking or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So all those are the input data that the system will be taking in. Okay. So depending upon that, we will be getting the corresponding set of output data. So output data will be the confirmation of the okay or the receipts generation. So all those things will be the corresponding set of output data. So these are the like things which will be specified in the functional requirement. Okay. Then the next is the non-functional requirement. So in non-functional requirement, basically we it deals with the characteristics of the system which cannot be expressed explicitly. Okay, like how we are going to maintain the system. Okay, how much the system is portable in various platforms like Windows, or it can be Macintosh, or maybe in Linux. Okay, how the 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 system must be used. Okay, who will be the users, whether it be the layman, whether it be intermittent users, or maybe the scientific background users. So those are the requirements which cannot be stated using a particular function. Okay, but they have to be like mentioned, like how it is to be maintained, what will be the period of maintenance, okay, what will be the portability of the system, and who are the people who will be using the system. Okay. Then the goals of implementation part documents basically suggest regarding development. Okay, so here in this part of the document, it will be basically be updating the system functionalities that may be required in future, kind of a future scope that can be there. Okay, then new devices which may be supported in the future. So let's say initially maybe it was compatible only with the web version, but later maybe we can move to the mobile version as well, isn't it? So all those considerations has to be in the goals of implementation section. Okay, what are the reusability issues that may be there? So all that thing has to be highlighted. So these are the items which the developers should keep in mind during development so that the development system may meet some aspects that are not required immediately, but they will become a part of the future scope. So like for example here, how we are going to identify the functional requirement from a problem description. Okay, so let us take that we are taking example of library system where suppose one of the function is search book, searching a book. Okay, so this is a function which basically searches the book in the system. So how do we search? We will input what kind of data, a text, maybe an author's name. Okay, so depending upon the input that we have applied to the, we have given to the system, so we will be getting the corresponding output. So what is the output which is expected here? These things will be it will retrieve and the details of the author's book and the location of where the book is located in the system. Okay, so this is basically your uh, the functional requirement for one of the function where we are searching the book. Okay, so accordingly, each of the functional requirement must be documented very nicely. Okay, where the function which is being used must be specified. Like for example here, what is the function we have used here? F1. The name of the function was F1, and what was the name? Search book function. So from the name itself, I know that this function will basically search the book, isn't it? So on what basis will it search? On the basis of author's name. So this became my input. And once this is applied to the system, I'm expecting the output to come. So the output will be what? Details of the book will come. Okay, and also where the book is being saved, that location also is being traced. Okay, so accordingly, whenever we are writing it down or documenting the functional requirement, then we need to be very clear about many things like the input data, like we said, output data, and how the processing is being carried out from by supplying the input data and getting the output. Similarly, like for example, let's say someone is withdrawing cash from the ATM. So what is the function? Let's say function name is R1, and what is the name of the function? Withdraw cash. Okay, so we have to describe like what we are trying to do. So the withdraw cash function first determines the type of account. Very correct. When we go also to an ATM to withdraw cash, what do we do? First, we have to go to the withdraw amount option, isn't it? Then we have to select what kind of account we type we are using, whether current account, savings account, isn't it? Then what is the expected account? We apply the PIN number and accordingly we withdraw the cash. So R1, let's say it's the parent function. So here what we are trying to do, this function basically will work for the withdrawal of the cash. Now inside this function, we have other sub functions like R1.1, isn't it? What was the function, this thing? Uh, R1, isn't it, index? So this, since this is a part of this parent function, so we have, it is inside this. So we are numbering this one as R1.1. So we will first go for selecting the withdraw amount option. Okay, so what do? We will input how much we are withdrawing, isn't it? Withdraw amount, we'll click on the option, and what is the output which is expected? User will be prompted to enter the account type. Okay, so in the next phase again, after this, we are going to the next level. So what is the next level? We have to select the account type. So the user will give the input. That means whether it's saving or maybe whether it's the current account, okay, etc. It will be giving the input. Based on that input, what will happen? The output, what will do? It will prompt to enter the amount, isn't it? Then in the third sub level, what do we have? Get required. So in this part now, we have to input the amount. Okay, like how much amount we want to withdraw. So input amount to be withdrawn in integer values, it should be greater than 100 but less than 10,000, because our ATM at one shot it cannot there is a limit which can dispense from the machine. Okay, so we suppose 20,000 if you want to withdraw, so 10,000, 10,000 two times we can get, isn't it? So accordingly we will be inputting, okay, the withdrawal value which will be greater than 100 and less than 10,000. So what is the expected output? The requested cash and printed transaction statement is like dispensed from the ATM machine as an output. Okay, so here we have three phases or three parts. So what we did is we named the parent function as withdraw cash, and then inside this we had three subfunctions. Okay, and accordingly this was done. So once the processing in the last part is the processing part, that means the ATM will be processing, right? So the amount is debited from the user's account if sufficient balance is otherwise is available. Otherwise, an error message is displayed. Okay, so this will be done from the system's end. Far, whatever we have spoken, any doubt? Any doubt? Anyone? Okay. Now, what are the properties of a good software specific requirement specification document? So first of all, it should be very much concise, okay, and at the same time, it should be there should not be any kind of ambiguity. Whatever we are reading, the customer is reading, or whatever the system analyst has documented, it should be very much clean, clear, and it should not have any kind of ambiguity. It should be complete, okay, very easily understandable. Then it should be well structured. So a well structured document is very much easy to understand and modify. Okay, so if the document is well structured in a proper format, so for anyone it will be very easy to understand. And if suppose any kind of updation is required, then it can be done very, very easily. Okay. SRS document may undergo several revisions also, okay, to cope up with the customer requirement. Let's say, for example, you have made the first SRS document, you showed to them that this is the understanding that we have understood. So is this okay or not? So in that case, if the customer says that, okay, this is fine, then that SRS can be taken to be final and complete. But if the suppose the customer is not happy, then you need to make the certain updations according to the vision of the customer. Okay, and the SRS has to be updated accordingly. Then black box view. In the case of black box view, what it is trying to say that the SRS document should be able to specify only the external behavior of the system, but not go into the implementation details. Okay, so the SRS document should view the system, should show the view of the system to be developed. Okay, and show externally like what are the things required to develop the system, what is the output which is expected. Okay, but not show how the working of the internal details is not exposed. Okay, those things is being maintained. Then the SRS document should be easily be understood by the reader. We already had said. Okay, it should also be able to list down those kind of events, that how the system will respond if any kind of invalid input data or any kind of undesired events takes place. Okay, all the requirements which is mentioned in the SRS document should be verifiable. That means we should be able to verify that whether or not these requirements have been met during the implementation. So, if the document is something else and during implementation is something else, then that will not work, right? So, whatever is written in the paper, that has to be shown and exhibited while making the system. Now, suppose if we are not making an SRS, okay, and directly going to the implementation of the system, then there will be many kind of issues. Okay, so without developing the SRS document, the system will not be able to cater to all the customer needs, because many things verbally if we are doing, then many things will be skipped. So accordingly, there is a possibility that the analyst and the developer have not developed the entire system as per the requirement of the customer. Okay, so that is one thing. Software developers also will not know whether they are developing the exact thing which is being visualized by the customer because there is no documentation. Okay, so that is one case. Again, without SRS document, it will be very difficult for the maintenance part, okay, to maintain in the later course, okay, after it is being developed, because one will not be able to understand the various features of the system. So if there is no documentation which explain the various functions of the system, then maintaining such document, like maintaining such system becomes very, very difficult. Okay. So using the SR can the doctor use how one should use the system. Okay, suppose for someone who is not from IT background, then how to use the system also that can be shown very nicely in case of SRS. Okay, so these are the various problems that may come if we are not making an SRS. Okay, it will be very difficult to understand. It will be very difficult to modify also because there is no document which will tell how the system is working. Okay, what are the input that is being expected. Okay, so many things will come up which will be very much inconsistent. Okay, so I'll stop here for today. Okay, since you have internship interview also. So Arbas, you do one thing, you note down the attendance date wise for today and you can share in the group.